Disruption and change have become accepted norms in the global retail industry. The pandemic has accelerated some of the key trends. Digital technologies like mobile, AI, IoT, and cloud are underpinning the shifts in shopping behaviour and operational process. However, behind the DX hype, what do retailers' key decision makers really think? What are they doing now and planning for the years ahead to survive and grow? This session pulls on the results of a survey of 186 retail ICT decision makers in 15 countries, and Fujitsu's Global Insights and Customer Examples aims to give you some answers to these questions. Today we have Craig Beattie in Sydney, Principal of Data Driven and author of the Global Retail Trends Report. He's joined by Richard Clark in London, who's the Executive Director of Global Retail at Fujitsu, to discuss this subject in more detail. Over to you, Craig.
Thanks, Nadira. Hi, Richard. Good to speak to you again. We seem to be doing this a lot. Ever since we did the first study of more than 300 IT decision makers in retail about 12 months ago. Since that time, we've expanded the study to also include manufacturing and finance. So we have more than 600 respondents, which means we can compare across industries. So the findings this year show that the retail industry is a leader in DX initiatives that improve the customer experience. The actual outcomes of DX are meeting or exceeding their expectations, and respondents actually say that they've been quite successful in doing things revolving around the customer, like building trust where they've exceeded or at least met expectations. And they've also done things like improving their risk profile, strengthened customer relationships, and competitiveness. They're also deriving highly positive outcomes in the improved use of data, analytics, and AI. But Richard, digital transformation has obviously been a key factor in transforming the retail sector. Why do you think respondents have prioritized customer experience or CX over most of the other things we asked about?
Thank you, Craig. I think this is really interesting. I think it just confirms that customer experience or CX is still the lifeblood of retailing. But what's different in today's data-driven world is that retailers can really map where are the key points that they can intervene to really make a difference to that customer experience, that end-to-end experience for the shopper, so they can drive loyalty, drive satisfaction, drive performance. CX is still like, or customer experience, it's like it seals the deal on things other than just price and availability, although they're really important. So whether you're, it's about the stock availability when you go online, or whether it's having access to a store colleague, or whether it's particular fulfillment options, retailers are very acute now to how they can impact that customer experience. I think the other point is that retailing is so much about online to offline or offline back to online. And so what retailers need to think about is less about, am I online, am I in store, and what do I do to improve the experience of that customer? They've got to really think about a seamless customer experience, so that really whether it comes down to particular experiences, or whether it's about information, or whether it's about the opportunities you give for retailers to find new products, everything's got to be consistent. Everything's got to have the equivalent service level, whatever touch point they're at. And I guess the third point, which is, I guess, the elephant in the room, we've got to talk about the pandemic, because the pandemic has really impacted retailers' attitude to customer experience. And I think it's all about this shift to online. I mean, if you look at some of the analysis we do, it could be that by 2023, 35% of retail sales will be online. Still a large part in store, but online was only 10, 15% 3 or 4 years ago. So the pandemic's had a real shift. But the risk for retailers is that it becomes a little bit dehumanized. It becomes transactional, a bit commoditized. So what they're really looking for now with customer experience is, how do you add back in the human element? How do you add back in more emotion? How do you really rebalance? I mean, retailing is always a social activity, but I think the challenge now, and it came through from the research, is how can you, put together some of these digital solutions with the human element? And it's not easy, but that, I think, is what we're seeing in the research.
Well, that leads into the next part of the study. We actually asked about workplace innovation, which is the other side, the people behind retail. There have been a lot of efforts to improve employee experience. Almost 3/4 of the retail respondents told us that improving EX is a major driver for their DX initiatives. In fact, it's the third most prominent driver of DX initiatives overall, out of almost 40 that we asked about. behind only improving products and improving risk management and security. And so the way retailers engage and support their employees was a very key factor in many business and IT strategic drivers for retailers in the past 12 months. What do you think has contributed to this increased focus on the employees?
I think it's a really good question, because I think it comes back to the point about a bit of a balance between this movement to online, which, although it can be, experiential, it can be uplifting, it can be inspiring for some customers, it can also be, as I said, a little bit dehumanized. So I think retailers are saying, hang on, people, we've got huge investment in our people. For most retailers, it's about 20% of their cost base is in their people. They've invested a huge amount in recruiting and training, and they could be their brand ambassadors. So how can they ensure that their people, their employees, their store colleagues, whether it could be depot warehousemen, it could be call center agents, how are they adding to the brand experience? I think there are probably two areas of investment we're seeing. One is very much about helping the shopper. So you've got some really smart things, like the one I really like is Gucci in Italy. So if you can't get to the store, but you really want to see that bag or those pair of shoes, you can now hook up on your phone remotely via video link into the store, and the assistant can then take you around the store, see the products. And okay, it's not a complete recreation of being in the store, but it's a simulation, and that's really smart. But that needs investment. But it's really making the store's colleagues' role so much more fulfilling. The other side of it is more about being part of a team. So you've got Google Workspace, you've got Teams, you've got other ways in which you can make it easy for store colleagues or call center agents to feel part and collaborate in a wider mission, understand what their role is doing. If you're on a call center, understand that you're having impact downline in the store. And for store colleagues, it's like, can I just sign onto the till with a fingerprint, rather than having to put in my passcode? When they do that on their smartphone, why can't retailers allow them to do it on their phone? But I guess the last point is, when it comes to people, is, again, how do you really understand the value of your people in a retail environment that's becoming increasingly self-service, more automated, even unmanned? Because we've got self-service checkouts, we've got automation, signing on in an automated way, and then you've got cashierless stores. And I think that is a real challenge. Where do you really find the value? In the past, the value of people in retail was finding a product in store, or at the checkout, you had that friendly chat. Now, is it actually on chat? Is it curbside, or is it the doorstep? For the delivery driver that's bringing your food? And that, I think, is where retailers are now rethinking their investment in their people.
Thanks, Richard. Well, we've seen a very strong focus on the people side, customer experience and employee experience, but the report also covers many other areas: an incredible focus on cybersecurity, an incredibly strong focus on using AI for fraud detection, using IoT, a whole host of things with electric vehicles and in the supply chain. And in this particular session, we're not going to go into those. But one thing that came up was that although retail has made incredible progress in the last 12 months in spite of COVID, the key challenge was that they had not enough time to think about digital transformation. And once they'd thought about it and put in the plans, they didn't have enough time to actually innovate and implement them as quickly as they wanted. We asked them to rate 23 other potential challenges as well. And over 3/4 actually said that time was the key issue. That's clearly connected to the fifth challenge, which is getting stakeholder buy-in, because it takes time to involve your decision makers on what you want to do right through to the store. And also the overall complexity of business process change was a big challenge. So put all that together. It came from a very broad range of retail organizations, from $500 million organizations through to organizations greater than $10 or $15 billion. So there's a big range here. But do these findings actually align with what you're seeing on the ground?
No, absolutely. And I think a day doesn't go by without a customer saying to me and my team, can we go faster? Can you help us unravel the problem we've got here? Because the pressure to perform, the pressure to increase performance is so much greater than I think it was even sort of 18 months, 2 years ago. I think breaking it down, these 2 points about time and complexity, if you take the time one first, I think it's definitely about business expectations. I think in the past, it might have been, we talked about months or years for payback for IT investments. Now it's days, weeks, certainly no more than a year. And that's really putting pressure on retailers to find the value. And that, I think, is why they feel they're being chased by the clock. I think the other point, though, is the complexity. We call it sort of value fragmentation. Say 5 years ago, if you wanted to increase performance, you might look for one big initiative, like you change your store format, make it bright and shiny and more inviting. Now you've probably got 10, 15, 20 different smaller solutions that you're trying to enact to deliver the outcome. But what's really hard then, how do you make all those work together? How do you transform your networks so that you can track customers, so that you can also do sort of surface product reviews on your phone, and put that hardware in the hands of the colleagues? That's what's challenging, that's what's difficult. And that's why we work with many of our customers to help our customers see the wood for the trees. And rather than having a list of 20 initiatives, say, actually, what are the 2 or 3 things that are really going to make a difference? And follow those through and work continuously to improve them. Because you're going to have something coming up behind you, again, to remain competitive and current, that you're going to have to enact. So you haven't got time for lengthy rollouts. We say, in effect, rollouts are dead. It's all about continuous improvement now.
Thanks, Richard. Look, we've in this very short time, we've covered quite a lot of topics. The actual report is more than 50 pages. It goes into almost all of these areas in a lot of detail, and then there's more behind that that you can look at on the website as well. To summarize it briefly, though, COVID has been both a blessing and a curse to retail. It's caused a number of challenges and issues, but it's actually compelled retailers to embrace digital transformation technologies and get plans in place to improve efficiencies and productivity across the business. A lot of priority investments change. Cybersecurity keeps being a very, very strong investment and will be even more invested in even more going forward. Richard, now that we've looked at some of these things, what would you say the key takeaways are from this report?
It's a tough question because there's so much valuable information in here. But I guess if I try and boil it down, there are 3 things. And I think, let's face it, without doubt, COVID-19 has just transformed the retail landscape. It does mean that there's a bit of a Darwinian effect going on, the survival of the fittest. And some, tragically, will disappear. But those that survive will be stronger and better because they will have taken the advantage, as Craig said, to accelerate some of the trends. So just here in the UK, one of the major grocers has really stepped up its scan and pay deployment. So using your smartphone to go and scan the product yourself, pay on your phone and leave. Very touch-free, great for COVID, but now more and more customers, because of that trigger, are now using that. And it's like transform that digital piece. So it's definitely accelerated many of the things that were pre-existing. But I guess as a bit of an antidote to all this talk about technology is that we strongly think that digital transformation, at the end of the day, it's a phrase. What's important is it's not a list of technologies. What it's about is people. It's about taking those technologies but blending them, operating them alongside your people, your processes, your partners, and making a difference to your operation, making life easier for your store colleagues, for your call center agents, for your depot managers, for your doorstep delivery folk who need the information or they need the tool sets to be able to understand something quickly, respond to a customer. And I guess the last point, and I've been in the industry a long time, and for me, retailers are nothing but optimistic. And I think there's a really good message through here that even at the darkest times, the depths of COVID, retailers still felt that there was going to be an impact, a positive impact. Something good was coming to this. The budgets were going to rise. And I think that's something for us to take away. And without doubt, I think over the next 3-5 years, we're going to see even more investment in these digitally enabled ways to shop and operate your stores. And for us, I think that's only good news for the industry.
Craig, Richard, really interesting discussion and some great takeaways there. So thank you both for that contribution. Now, to find out how Fujitsu can help your retail organisation deliver growth, customer satisfaction and business efficiency, contact us or learn more at fujitsu.com/retail. To get a copy of the DX Trends in Retail 2021 report, follow the link on your screen. Thank you for watching.